you're a woman,
Yes.
not for a man.
Because
I got more attention
Yes.
in New York City in the 6 days I was there
Yeah.
than I've gotten in this town in the last 6 months. Not just because of how friendly they were and the sort of different attitude. There was that as well. But also just the way New York is designed.
Yeah.
You run into people. You're dealing with people. In Dallas, you can never see people. You can go to the grocery store. You can go to the restaurant.
I love the
And-
community feel.
That's exactly right. That's how it felt
It's a
like.
community feel. You have nothing to do. You can go walk the street, sit, have a coffee, and before you know it, you're in a conversation with 3 people. Someone else drops in. Oh, hey, I'm going to go get a pizza. You want to come? By the way, I need to pick up at the bookstore something. And oh, by the way, you're hanging. Could just come.
We met so many people.
Yeah.
I visited my brother. I visited my godson. That was amazing. So he's an art student. And just like I did at the Dallas Art Fair where we discussed about the nucleus accumbens and seeing the art and stuff. But I got to do it at the Met.
Yeah. Oh,
and my godson is an art student, like fine art. He's a really talented artist.
Right.
Who's studying it. And he was like,
what school is he at?
It's the one in Philadelphia. Philadelphia School of Fine Art is probably not the exact name, but it's a good paraphrase.
Close enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he was in New York visiting his parents, or he's just finished the semester.
Yeah, it's summertime. So.
Right. So you guys got to go to the Met.
Yeah. While his parents
Very
were at
nice.
work. Yeah, it was incredible. It was
Yeah,
I've always loved the Met, but
it's a great experience.
having him there to explain to me why this piece was more important.
Interesting.
Like he is very into
He brought the
history,
academic side to
which
it.
I ate up like a spoon.
Of course. And I bet that was great. And obviously he's part of his curriculum is to understand art history,
Exactly.
obviously, and gain not only historical perspective, but translate it to the modern world.
The best artists are able to evoke an emotion, but also it helps to be able to know what came before you, so you can take it to a new level.
Just like Van Meegeren, like he copied the art from, prior centuries. Who did he copy?
Van Meegeren?
Yeah. Van Meegeren, the Dutch fake artist.
If my godson was here, then this would be a good conversation. But
Yeah, he copied the lost years of that Dutch painter.
Is this a forger?
Yeah, the forger.
Oh, okay.
That sold to Goring, a painting for a lot of money. He fooled the Nazis.
Oh, I didn't know this.
Yeah.
Story. Yeah. Is
Van
that a movie?
No, it's a real story.
I know, but that would be a good movie.
Well, there's a documentary about it.
I know, but wouldn't that be a fun? Don't you think that could be a fun, like caper movie? With
Yeah,
the guy?
no, it is a movie.
Okay.
Yeah, a movie came out about 2-3 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Are we starting already?
It's been going. The podcast has been going.
Oh, it is?
Yeah. Can you hear him in the ears?
No.
So, are we doing a hard start? Okay. Oh, yeah. Just keep going. He said.
So Van Meegeren copied.
So back to New York.
Okay.
Unless you want to do a podcast, a leverage podcast, because I wanted to talk to you about the feeling of community. And
yes.
I was, even though it was dirty, even though everything was too expensive,
right?
I was so happy in New York.
Yes.
Walking around, interacting with people, having chance occurrences and running into people I'd know.
Well, let me say, so I think part of it is you grew up there.
Yes.
You have memories, nostalgia.
For sure.
Right?
And I did it. I did the all the hits. My old elementary school, where I used to play, where I lived when my kids were born, the whole everything.
The first corner where you hung out.
Yeah, for sure.
How about the first streetwalker that you hit on?
No, you mean the pimp where I got slapped? That's a different story. No, I went to by that street as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that one too. Yeah. And there was one photograph I saw, the first place where you took art lessons.
Yeah. Yeah.
Japanese art of some sort.
So where my elementary school was, on the corner, there was the storefront that had all these like Asian letters.
Right.
And I thought it was a Kung Fu studio. So I went to my mother and I was like, Mom, please, I want to do this. I couldn't read yet. She quickly could tell what it was and said, "Oh, wonderful," and signed me up. And I was so upset to discover that it was sumi brush painting, which is
Wonderful.
using your breath as you do the strokes to like draw. We drew a lot of bamboo.
Right. And you thought you were going to meet Bruce Lee.
Yeah, I thought I was going to be like the next kung fu master. Yeah. But here's the thing.
You and David Carradine in Kung Fu.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
All of them. Kato.
You didn't need to be Asian for that, of course.
Exactly.
Different times.
Right. So but one thing is when I was doing it, that's when I first realized the phenomenon. I was a kid, like 5 or 6. The phenomenon of when I was engaged, the class went by like this.
Right.
And when I was sitting there like, I don't want to, you know, as how kids can be. And I was like, this isn't, and I'm just bored and looking at the clock, it would take forever.
Endless.
And that phenomenon, I remember really noticing it being like, wow, that's interesting.
Right. Time is long when you're not invested in it, in the activity. And time's short when you are. Isn't that what dating the right woman is all about versus going on a bad date? Same thing?
Isn't that why God has a joke?
Tell
Because when you're with the most wonderful woman, it's like you don't spend any time together. Time just goes by in a flash. And when you're with the wrong person, it feels like it takes forever. Why didn't why didn't God do it the other way?
You get the clue. She's looking at the watch like this into her phone. Like, okay. Yes, but it's a true phenomenon. Even though time is constant in terms of
Right. Well,
minute to minute, allegedly. Unless you go at a speed of light, then it slows down.
right. Exactly.
Right? Doesn't it?
As you approach the speed of light, that's exactly.
Yes.
And you become more massive.
That's theory of relativity, right? Something like that.
So you were saying before we got on the air about how the difference between urban living, because I was surprised.
Yes.
Urban living and country living. Because
Yes. Urban and rural.
Rural and rural. So to me, Dallas has always felt like a little rural to me
Yeah,
compared
Dallas
to
has
New
that.
York.
No doubt.
But most of the people who live in Dallas who come from smaller towns think of Dallas as the big city.
The big D.
The big city.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm always like, well, it's big.
It's all relative.
Well, it is relative. I was surprised because usually you think of urban environments as being more dangerous, more deadly. Go to the country to be safe.
Right.
In the city, you're taking it's a little more thrilling, but you're taking your chances. So is my preconception correct? Or as usually as on our show, is life can be counterintuitive?
Counterintuitive for sure. So what we're talking about basically are deaths per 100,000. Deaths per 100,000. The difference between a rural setting versus an urban setting. So
Right.
New York being urban,
Exactly.
right? So in general, about 80% of the U.S. population now lives in urban centers.
Okay.
And 20% obviously in rural settings. And then mortality, if we go back, say, 20 years, 1999. So let's do a 20-year comparison.
Okay.
1999 to 2019,
Right.
okay? So pre-pandemic, pre-COVID pandemic. The difference in deaths was 7%. People died 7%. There were 7% more deaths per 100,000 in rural settings.
Rural.
You die more.
Wow.
Yeah. And we can talk about all the different causes in a second. 20 years later, the difference is 20%. 20%. That's huge. So it has
Why did
the
it
gap has
expand?
increased.
Why did the gap increase so much?
Yeah. So we can categorize them under social determinants of health. So more poverty, less access to high quality healthcare in rural areas.
Okay.
More of the TAOs. Remember we talked about TAOs,
What was Taos? It was tobacco,
tobacco consumption,
alcohol
consumption,
overconsumption of foods,
of the 3 S's,
sugar,
the 3 shitters, I call them.
sugar,
Salt,
salt,
saturated fats.
and saturated fats.
Yeah.
And which ones are the saturated fats?
The ones that come, for example, the fat in red meats, the fat in animal products, saturated fats.
Well, I thought animal fat wasn't bad.
No, there are good and bad, but there are more bad ones in animal fats. The good fats are in vegetables and avocado.
I thought there were certain
And oils.
vegetable oils that were worse.
Yes, some of them have saturated, and some have polyunsaturated. So you want the unsaturated.
The
Those are the good ones.
polyunsaturated.
And the polyunsaturated you want, right? The omega-3s.
So which
Like in
one
fish,
has the most?
of which,
The good fat.
like olive oil, avocado, coconut oil, omega-3s, fish oils. Those are the ones that, and some fish more than others, right? Wild type, right? Meaty fish. So anyways, less or more of those bad foods with sugars, salt, saturated fats. So processed meats, more food deserts. They don't have access to the same quality or quantity of vegetables, fruits, whole grains.
So urban environments have more people, so they have more abundance of whatever
Better
is
quality
available.
foods.
Right.
Right. And the last was the TAOS. The S is for sedentary lifestyle. So less parks to play at. Some places have no sidewalks to walk on or ride a bike. Less safe community centers that are close by
Right.
to participate in athletic, endeavors. Less swimming pools. Less of all of those entertainment, recreational
But I thought
venues.
in the country you could just play out in the country. And
But
do
it's
all
not
that.
happening.
Ah.
At the same time, over the last 20 years, young people have also had an influx of all of the other bad things like social media, video games that promote more sedentary, isolated lifestyles, right?
Right.
So, along with the inability to have access to healthcare. So one of the issues has been over the last 20 years, closure of hospitals, medical clinics. There's a shortage of physicians and other providers in rural settings as opposed to urban centers. So those are all contributing one way or another to increasing cardiovascular deaths, from heart attacks and strokes
right.
and cancer, pulmonary disease, obesity, diabetes. Those are the main factors.
So Taos is paramount.
Tau. You have to know your Taos, right? If you're smoking, if you're over consuming alcohol and poor quality, the 3 S's I mentioned.
Right.
And lastly, sedentary lifestyle. And those are more likely in certain places. I mean, it's hard to imagine if you compare by, say, suicide rates, which places in the U.S. have the highest suicide rates and which have the lowest.
I'm going to guess that the highest is in the city and the lowest is in the nice, relaxing countryside.
Yes. You set that up just perfectly well. So it's the flip.
Whoa.
You're not surprised. So Montana has the highest. So first of all, the U.S. average is 14 suicides per 100,000 people. That's across all ages.
14 per 100,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the average in 2021. Montana, 32. Alaska, 31.
Wow.
New York, New Jersey, 7.
New York and New Jersey have the lowest.
Yeah, among the lowest.
Why do you think that is? More connection, more community?
Bingo. What you started this whole conversation about. So you went back to where you grew up,
Yes.
right?
Where I was
you
born.
Connected. Yeah, so you were born in New York City.
Yep.
At Bellevue, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a maternity ward, not the psych ward.
Not the psych ward. Okay, because your mother wasn't quite sure. Why?
For people who are not from New York, they don't know what we're talking about. People from New York
Yes.
all look at you funny when you say you're born in Bellevue because
Yes.
it's famously where they take the criminally insane people.
Yes. I mean, you didn't have electroshock therapy then, right? Like before, you're ready to go.
I just happened to live in the neighborhood. It's a funny story. My mom, his doctor had died, and she, being the flower child that she was like, "Oh, I'll just have him at home." And then my godmother was like, "No, you won't," and sent down her housekeeper, who had been a doula, and took my mom to the nearest hospital. And thank God, because I was a
Yes.
breech.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
She would have died, and I probably would have died as well.
It would have been tough. But that trend now with the midwives has come back, and there are
Right.
plenty of people having children at home with an experienced midwife.
With a midwife, but my mom was just going to do it like an Indian in the forest.
Right.
She had the idea in her head.
She was a hippie,
Yeah, pre-hippies.
pre-hippie. I
Yippie.
see. Yippie, I see. Very nice. So you're connected with that environment, with friends, your godson.
Yes.
So that became reality for you because of your Greek background?
Well, so my oldest friend, my parents had a flower store, and his dad happened to have a flower store.
Right.
And he lived close to where I lived. Our flower store wasn't close to where we lived. Our flower store was on the Upper East Side. We lived on the Lower East Side. But his flower store was on right by across the street from St. Mark's Church, which is where I went to church.
Right.
So I met him.
Was that a Greek Orthodox church?
No, my mom's
just Catholic?
My mom's Episcopalian.
Okay.
It's actually the oldest church in New York City. Oldest Christian church in New York City.
Okay.
It was where Peter Stuyvesant founded it.
And what year was that? 1700s?
16 something.
1600.
Yeah. The Dutch.
Ah,
So the Dutch had
Dutch.
New York before.
Right.
It used to be New Amsterdam.
Right. Yes. I recall my history. Yes.
So anyway, this kid was a little bit older than me, but basically the same age. And his dad had a flower store too. And his dad also was from Corfu, which is where my dad is from.
Right.
So I've known him since I was 2 years old, and we've stayed in touch, even though I left when I was 8 and didn't come back.
So in other words, you were the only Greek guy he could find.
I was the only guy, Greek Orthodox he knew.
Yeah.
Because you have to have someone Greek Orthodox. Yes. He was like, please, can you baptize my kids? So, yeah, exactly.
Was there any money exchanged?
No.
Just a nice meal.
No.
And a great godson, who's now an artist or studying to be.
Well, he is both an artist and studying to be an even better artist, yeah.
So, okay, so connection.
Right.
So that connection begot you a huge dose of endogenous endorphins.
It did.
Through another hormone called oxytocin. So oxytocin is released, it's a hormone of love, right? It's a hormone of connection.
Yeah, that's how
Of a community like New York where in every block, whether you know people or not, you're going to be received by somebody saying hello.
Sure.
Somebody's going to say, hi, how are you? Oh, I used to live here. Where? Oh, I did too, and et cetera, right? So that oxytocin increases dopamine.
Yeah.
Right? At the hypothalamic nucleus accumbens, and that gives you that nice
everybody
pleasure.
Drink, he said nucleus accumbens.
There you go. At least once a show, we must say that. So
but I could tell, because you'd already discussed with me ahead of time, and we did the art episode, that phenomenon, I was very aware how happy I was.
Right. And maintaining it.
Wasn't
throughout.
drinking.
Right.
Wasn't
gambling.
Not having to do.
And you surely didn't have sex either. Oh, you could have come close, I'm sure. Okay. You don't have to say. But anyways, you were doing positive activities that had to do more with connection rather than negative self-indulgence and narcissism.
I drank a little bit.
Okay.
I danced a little bit.
But it was in a community setting.
Yeah,
and you were,
for sure.
And you were at a place where there was live music, little dancing.
Oh, that was so fun, yeah.
Yeah. So
that place was crazy. That party that you saw me post, that was going on at 4:00. It was
amazing.
It was like Dallas is lucky at night to have that kind of vibe, and this was 4:00 in the afternoon.
You're right. We're semi-rural here.
It's all relative.
No question.
It's all relative.
I mean, I grew up in Toronto. We had little New York feeling. Not quite New York,
but still, yeah.
Some of that, for sure. So that connection probably is lacking in many rural areas on a consistent basis. Maybe some families have it, but it's more rare to have it out in the community week to week, day to day, with just strangers. Whereas New York, it's a city that pretty well forces you to be communal.
Yeah, and strangers become non-strangers just all the time.
Quickly, right?
I met a new person every day.
Yeah.
At least one.
Yeah. So, fast forward, as time goes on, we want our kids to be able to develop that sense of community with others. And again, we go back to suicide rates, unhappiness, diseases of despair have to do with isolation. So the recent lockdowns during the pandemic,
right?
Masking, isolation, schools closing, no extracurricular activities are all in detriment to that oxytocin dopamine release that gives you pleasure and happiness. And instead, you go into a negative, meaning more anxiety that results from isolation.
But when you use that stuff, doesn't it give you a release?
Yes.
But not of oxytocin.
when you
It gives you dopamine.
Yeah, but you wear it out, and you need more of that stimulus to get the same degree of pleasure. It's almost like you're developing tolerance.
Like a drug.
Like a drug, you're right. So you need more of it and more frequent, which is why young kids get upset when the parents say, it's dinner time, put the phone away or put the video game away, and they get angry.
Right.
And it is expected, it's almost predictable, because they're getting these little highs. And when that activity is done, right, then the dopamine level, the ability to produce more dopamine goes way down. So the dopamine receptors
is it like you're overusing them?
Like, oh yeah, like you're a factory, you're overusing it, and the D2, the dopamine 2 receptors, downregulate. So you end up coming to a very negative level. And then you seek any stimulus that will give you a quick dopamine high to get a little pleasure, to get away from the pain and the anxiety of the little withdrawal that you're having.
How long does it take to get over the withdrawal, or does it depend how addicted you are?
It depends on exactly how addicted, how much you have been doing whatever activity, like alcohol, for example, cocaine, other opioids. It depends how long you've been doing it, but it's going to take a matter of from as little as hours to days. And then you're craving the reuse of that drug to treat the withdrawal, the anxiety, the desperation, the unhappiness and pain.
So I just thought of a great question.
Yeah.
Me walking around the city, seeing old friends, going to museums, going to art galleries, meeting new people. I did that from dawn to dusk.
Fabulous.
Enjoying. I
Yes.
broke records for the amount I walked.
Fantastic.
And I didn't feel my dopamine get depleted,
Correct.
but I was releasing it all day.
Yes.
I was walking around like if I'd been dead and this was what heaven was, it could have been.
Yeah.
It was so wonderful. So why did that not deplete me and make me destroyed? Whereas if I would have been drinking and smoking and partying and
because all these activities you were doing were giving you low level spike, a level of contentment. Okay? Continuously. Whereas a drug, an alcohol binge,
video games,
cocaine video gives you a huge spike for a short time. And then it crashes and it goes negative, the production. And then you need another big spike, another dose.
and it tires out the cells that
correct.
produce it.
Versus versus finding pleasure in the everyday things is the best way to maintain homeostasis, meaning a nice level continuously
And the
that is continuously being released.
And the brain enjoys that.
Totally. You have oxytocin going on every time you see eyes that lock in with you, every time you see a friend or someone waves. And so you get these little tiny spikes that do not exhaust the baseline or the extra production that's needed for a few seconds. And second of all, you're also increasing serotonin, which is the hormone, the neurotransmitter that's low in people who have depression. So you're getting both good things going on at once by these low-level pleasure signals. So this is one of the explanations of the Hispanic paradox.
What's the Hispanic paradox?
That Latinos, despite the fact of being at a lower socioeconomic level by about 20,000 than Caucasians in the U.S., say 54,000 versus 76,000 average household income, and despite having less access to great healthcare, and despite going to the doctor less, and despite having a higher rate of diabetes, depending on which Latino group you're talking about, anywhere from 13 to 17%.
Wow, that's high.
Versus Caucasian,
And that's
7%.
Is that diet and
genetics? Yeah.
Genetics and diet, or both?
Both. Despite all of that, Latinos live 3 years longer than whites.
Wow.
It's a paradox,
That is a paradox.
right? Because by all
Right.
practical purposes, right, if you chew gum like our producer is doing right now,
Right, yeah.
as I'm hearing,
Yeah, oh, I've been hearing
right,
it the whole
the
time.
anxiety just goes through the roof, right? Because of the
yes,
stress.
Yeah.
So
It
you
reminds
should
me of
live
the
less.
guy on my flight back who was snoring.
I think he stopped.
I told so when I hadn't heard this before, but on this flight they said, listen, you have to turn off your devices.
Right.
If you have headphones or there's no volume, you can use them, but nobody else should be able to hear the device. FAA regulation.
Right.
So I was trying to sleep, and I always sleep on flights, but this guy was snoring. It was like a foghorn. So I went to the back to the stewardess, and I asked her if that was against FAA regulation.
Might be disturbing the pilots, but the pilots might be snoring themselves.
Well, they usually are.
Yeah.
She said that the move was to walk by him and bump, and that's what she usually did. Yeah.
Oh, very nice. So she's an experienced individual.
She
polite.
was. Yeah, polite. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
An accident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Startled. So the fact is that you want to keep always pleasure in the small things in life. And when you do substance abuse or an abuse of any behavior, you're depleting your factory at both the nucleus accumbens and another area of the brain, at the midbrain, called the VTA, ventral tegmental area. These are the two areas that give you the dopamine. So you erode
So dopamine comes from just two glands?
Two areas, the pleasure centers.
Okay.
Yeah, basically. So you look at people who are happy with friendships long term.
Right.
As many, for example, not only young people that you were meeting, but the elderly in places like New York.
Oh, yeah.
Where the mortality is lower than in rural areas where they feel isolated, abandoned.
Right.
And then they have the other social determinants of health that in their case put them at a higher risk for premature cardiovascular death and cancer versus someone living in a nice place in New York that just goes downstairs to the lobby and he or she, elderly 87-year-olds, got 10 friends hanging out.
Yeah, people just hanging out.
Who wants to go for tea? Let's walk.
The spontaneous hanging out was so
fantastic.
Fantastic.
Yeah. An Australian study looking at people over 70 to see who lived the longest without cancer, heart attack, strokes, found that those who had connection to the larger number of friends on a regular basis, so multiple times a week, not once in a while, or their church group, and then in second, third place was relatives. So friends were at the top of the list, especially those that went to do activities like go play chess or checkers or go for coffee or go read the paper at a coffee shop. Fantastic. See, I think that's one of the reasons why Starbucks became such a phenomenon.
Well,
because of the community feel.
It's copying the Greek and the Italians were doing that.
Absolutely.
The French, you know.
No, it's already existed, but in America, it wasn't so much so.
Right.
But yes, in places.
Just in big cities.
In Mexico City.
Right.
That's a big deal in Mexico City.
Of course.
Yeah. It has been forever. And in
That's one thing
Buenos Aires, other cities in South America as well.
I'm really hoping Dallas puts a lot more of stuff like that in front of parks.
Yes.
For some reason, the parks, it's all residential around parks instead of having a nice little commercial restaurants and
little food shops.
Yeah.
Pastry shops.
Yeah.
Not too much sugar though. Okay, but I know
a little
that's the
something
point.
with the
That's the
coffee,
point.
yeah.
So I think your trip to New York created a connection to your past as well.
For sure.
So that
It was a
alone,
walk down memory lane
correct,
in so many ways.
and nostalgia and all that, and then a current connection with the lives of those friends who you still have.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
So it's a full 360-degree circle. And that connection gives you a sense of pleasure.
For sure.
Nice, steady dopamine, right?
Right.
It's easier.
And the food. Oh.
Yeah. It's easier to deal with adverse situations when you're at this level of dopamine as opposed to here.
Right.
Right? That gap is enormous. So we all should.
Why is that?
Because you lose the ability to produce it by going to quick pleasure activities.
Yeah, but why are you able to handle adverse situations better when you're more relaxed and have better dopamine than not?
When you are more content, you have less anxiety,
Right.
less depression.
Right.
You're able to do problem solving with greater patience and clarity.
I see.
Patience and clarity.
So anxiety is not helpful.
Anxiety prevents you
Right.
from being a quick thinker, from being that person that uses the prefrontal cortex, memory center, connectivity to a greater effect to solve a problem. And it creates more anxiety when you realize, I don't understand this. Oh boy, I'm in a tough situation.
Right.
I don't know how to solve this problem. I don't know how to get out of this one. And that gets to be a vicious cycle, further eroding the dopamine and augmenting stress hormones.
Right.
Anxiety increases cortisol, norepinephrine, epinephrine, pro-oxidant, pro-atherogenic. pro-thrombogenic hormones. So all of these deleterious effects occur as a result of anxiety and depression.
Right.
So learning how to live content, and this is what I say about Latinos. So they have less money, more health impairments to some degree, but let's say the Cowboys are coming on, the roof is leaking, but the game's coming on. And the wife says, are you going to fix the roof? Yeah, mañana, al rato.
Right.
You know, my cousin is good. He's a roofer. I'm going to invite him to watch the Cowboys game. And then
get him to do it. Yeah.
Or if they're losing by 30 points, then we do it.
Right.
Because, Cowboys fans don't give up.
Never. Well, if you're a Cowboys fan, you know they can always come back because you've seen it happen.
Yes. It's been a while, though.
Well, they haven't won the big one in a while, but they've had some big comebacks even every year. I mean, the way the game is played now, it's totally different.
Yes.
But they've always had that never say die feel.
Absolutely. But anyway, so I'm very happy for you because that connection you need to do more often with your New York roots, as everyone should with their roots, and feel good about it. Right? There were not only these connections, but you need now to continue it through effective communication. Because it's what you do with it now.
I've stayed in touch with these people.
Right.
Obviously, that's why when I showed up, they rolled out the red carpet for me.
It was an embrace. Yes.
But I need to visit it more often.
Right. Yeah.
The thing is, I was looking for a reason, and
maybe
from what you're saying, the reason is just it's good for the soul.
For the soul, yeah. Even if it's a short trip.
It helps your health.
This is why I think vacations, family vacations, especially with kids, to see relatives, that they go, oh, why we have to go to grandmother's and whatever. But so many positive spin-offs come of it.
Right.
That are unforeseen, and in the end, for the most part, incredibly positive and long-lasting. Because you're going to look at photographs. You're going to remember sounds, places, people, funny incidents.
Exactly.
Right? And those are the kinds of things that in the end provide the contentment due to the oxytocin you release when you relive those memories.
I love how romantic it is. And then you're like, and because of the nucleus accumbens.
Yes. Well, it's all
your endothelial layer.
At the end of the day, okay, our emotions. All right?
You know how to take the romance out.
Yes.
Ironically, they call you Dr. Suave after all. You know what I forgot to do? I forgot to introduce the podcast.
It's okay.
Oh, my
goodness. Tell us, what have we been doing?
So this is the Leverage. Thank you, everybody. This is both the introduction and the close. This has been the Leverage Podcast. I'm your host. You're very forgetful. Yeah, you're very forgetful host, Davio Venturas. As always, I'm with the esteemed cardiologist, Dr. Federico Macy, otherwise known as Dr. Suave. I think this has been a fascinating topic.
Connect.
I completely thought it was opposite between rural and urban. So that's so interesting.
And the one last thing I will say, in the last 20 years, mortality in both urban and rural centers has been decreasing. There's been a 15 to 20% decrease.
Wonderful.
Yeah. There's still that 20% difference.
Well, it went from 7 to 20.
Yes, it increased. But right now...
So they both went down, but urban went down faster.
More deaths.
Fewer
in
deaths.
Rural, but fewer overall.
Right.
So the overall numbers went down in both.
But it went down faster in urban.
Correct. And more in women than men.
Well, that's another podcast.
More in women than men, as per our prior topic a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Men are dying at a quicker rate than women.
Yeah.
So women do better in an urban center because of the connections they have.
That makes sense.
Women
are more social like that.
Yes. Fantastic. I love it when they go girls' night out, they go meet friends for coffee.
Right.
Or for any excuse. Meet at the bookstore, coffee shop, etc. Right? Go shop. Don't overspend. Because you're eroding your dopamine.
Right. Too much. That's why. That's the reason.
Yeah, that's the reason, right? Honey, I can't let you put another $3,000 for, another expensive bag. I was going to say a brand name, but okay. So, your nucleus accumbens. You got nothing left for me. I need some.
So please follow us on YouTube. Rate and subscribe and like and comment.
Spotify.
We're also on Spotify. You can rate us on Spotify. Share it. We're also on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook. Please tell your friends about us, and look forward to seeing you guys soon.
Till next time, connect.